intro the show with that, and then we go to a little more sensitive topic around here. It's Pat Forty with the tweet yesterday. Pat, obviously now with SI, saying that LSU's basketball program has received its notice of allegations, a major milestone in the school's long-running NCAA infractions case. Now, obviously, this is going to catch a lot of eyeballs, going to get a lot of clicks, going to drive a lot of people around here crazy. And I have a lot of general thoughts on the matter. First of all, this is I'll start with this. This is what applies to the most people listening to this and that care about LSU basketball. I think if you're jumping down Pat Forty's throat on this story that he wrote yesterday, you're probably a little bit misguided in your place. LSU receiving a notice of allegations from the infractions committee is news. That is a development. That is something new. So if you're screaming and yelling at the cloud saying Pat Forty has no new information, same thing we've been hearing for 4 years, nothing new, Forty hates LSU, we hate Forty, he's an idiot, probably not accurate. His job is to report the news. He has sources at the NCAA. We know that very well. He has been a little bit misled at times over this 4-year investigation and has jumped the gun here or there. Yesterday was not one of those times when he just comes out and says LSU got an NOA and then refreshed the situation with the quotes from the old investigation. No, that's not new. But for someone who's not mired in the middle of this, if you're a Utah fan in Salt Lake City or you pull from Miami and you're down there in South Florida and you're like, oh, yeah, the Will Wade thing. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. That's a reporter's job. Pat Forty did not say, although the nut graph was not great at the top that said that could be facing major infractions. It could not be facing major infractions. We don't know. But essentially the story basically just says they got a notice of allegation. Here's why they got it. And it is progressing the story. Now, from my perspective, as I read this, I've got an analogy that isn't perfect, but it's kind of what I gleaned from yesterday. And it's that LSU's basketball program has been driving with the check engine light on for 4 years. We know something's going on. We're carrying on business as usual. We're getting point A to point B, but eventually we're probably going to have to get this looked at. And yesterday, we got off the ramp, and we've checked in the mechanic shop, and we got the bill. And someone's going to know eventually what it's going to cost. Right now, we as the public have not seen a notice of allegation, and assuming this is true, that LSU has gotten it, even though it didn't confirm it, LSU understands now what the findings were of this forever and a day investigation into the basketball program. On the plus side of this, this should not in any way impact the next 3-4 weeks of LSU basketball, however long this season may go. Because when LSU receives this, they've got a grace period to evaluate it, to look over it. They can send them back their response to it, and then we eventually have a hearing. All that is much down the road, and Pat Forty pointed that out in his news piece. So right now, it just means that, okay, it's time to go, as opposed to having the black cloud follow you around forever, and it's not going to affect this specific team. That's kind of what I take from yesterday.
Yeah, I think for me, it's in two fronts. I think the first front is they're going to keep, talking about the same quotes that we've heard and we've already known about. So there's nothing groundbreaking that they've released right now. I'm sure if there's something was to be the case, I'm sure they'd hold on to that until it's time to say that, but they haven't done that to this point. And I think the second part to this is I think they're going to have to do something now. I thought, the days of, maybe they're just going to let this thing kind of walk away. Maybe, there's no slap on the wrist. Maybe things just go on as usual. I think that those days are over. We've seen the NCAA kind of do some of these violations across the country. Most of them haven't been significant. They've been kind of slap on the wrist. I don't know if this is going to be in that territory, but it's looking that way because to me, with you not really finding anything new, you could have slammed the hammer down a long time ago. So for whatever reason, this kind of has been drawn out. I don't know exactly why, but I guess we're going to find out sooner than later.
I got to guess that it's taken this long because they had trouble finding concrete proof. As we've seen in the past, the NCAA, generally speaking, doesn't carry the biggest hammer. Now, they just haven't when it relates to this case and what it's meant to the college basketball world. We've seen people go to jail. There were some serious things going on. Dawkins is in jail right now in Alabama. We've seen guys lose their job. We've seen show causes. But for the most part, Bruce Pearl's still around. Bill Self's still around. Sean Miller got fired because they were losing games. But right now, it's just a matter of what they found, what they bring to LSU, what the attorneys say, and truth be told, largely how Scott Woodward feels. And I can't tell you how he feels. He did not hire Will Wade, and the NCAA wants Will Wade on. They want him up front and center. They want, as Matt has said many times, they want their pound of flesh. And that's why they have kept this football investigation open as long as they have, because they feel like if LSU feels like its football program is threatened, they will sacrifice the basketball program to give the NCAA what they want, because football drives the bus. Everybody knows it. And that's been their thought process all along. That is readily apparent because everything on the football side has been decided. People have gone to jail. I mean, everyone knows what went on in football. LSU self-reported. They had a bowl ban, but they've left that stuff open just because of basketball. It's very transparent. It's obvious to see. But that's still being brought up in Pat Forty's case. They're still allowing football. So the question is, can they strong-arm LSU into making a reaction they don't want to make, or does LSU want to make it? I can't tell you, sitting in this chair right now, how Scott Woodward feels. I can tell you how I feel as an LSU alum and a supporter of the basketball program. I don't want anybody else coaching this team. I say that meaning he's the coach right now. I don't want a new one. I think Will Wade has done an excellent job building a consistent winner at a program that has not had a consistent winner since the early 1990s. They have had good teams. John Brady had a nice little run. But some first-round exits, UAB, Purdue, a couple NITs, just the consistent competing for SEC championships and getting to the second week of the NCAA tournament didn't necessarily happen there. He did it the one time with the Final Four team. He got to the Sweet 16 with Stonewall. He did a pretty good job. But for the most part, over this time, it's been an inconsistent program with far more 500 conference seasons than chances to reach the second weekend. And Will Wade has changed that. He's recruiting at an elite level, no matter how you determine he's doing that, and he's winning a lot of basketball games. Because of the nature of college basketball, I'm fine with that as a supporter of the program. I want him to be the guy. If I was in Scott Woodward's chair, I would read over this. If there was nothing absolutely damning that was going to put the program on the death penalty, I'm just kicking it to the curb and leaving him there. Confident Scott Woodward's not going to feel that way. It's a pretty willy-nilly win basketball games and nothing else mindset, but that's kind of where I think we are.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, especially with the landscape of college sports and college athletics right now with NIL being so prominent. We're going to pound a guy for what's going on every single day. I know you're technically not supposed to be making NIL offers, but it's pretty transparent. That's kind of what's going on around across college sports right now, and to kind of still be hanging on to something that happened 4 years ago that's kind of in the same realm of what's going on every day now. I think the NCAA has to make a decision sooner than later. This thing, the farther along they let this thing drag on, it's not like they're going to break anything new. You would think that with all the resources that they have, they would have found something that they can kind of lay that hammer down and say, hey, LSU, if you don't want to fire this guy, or if you don't want to, self-impose bans on your program, then we're going to make a decision for you. And with all that not being done right now, I just find it very difficult for them to really, slam the hammer down as hard as you may think they may try to do, with LSU really not making the decision thus far.
Yeah, so that's where we are with this. I think this is months from being resolved. I think we'll get more information prior to that as to what is in this notice of allegations. It's not a letter of infractions, it's a notice of allegations. And LSU will have a chance to defend itself, and eventually there will be a hearing. So from my perspective, this is the way I've looked at this the entire time. When I get asked this all the time is, hey, how do you approach this? Like, Will Wade's in trouble. I was like, hey, I'm going to watch LSU play basketball, and I'm going to react to whether they win or lose, and I'm going to bury my head in the sand about everything else that's swirling around. I don't care about any of that. And that still remains true for me. If you're not like that, that's fine. It's just the way I choose to approach it. I'm excited for this SEC tournament that cranks up today and LSU to play tomorrow, and I'll be fired up when the selection show comes on Sunday and LSU is in the tournament next weekend. That's what's going to be important to me right now. We'll cross other hurdles as a fan, in my perspective, when we get the notice of allegations and when Scott Woodward has his opportunity. The contract states for Will Wade that there are level 2 or level 1 infractions that LSU can fire him for cause. It doesn't say you must or he is fired if there are. It says you can. So we'll see what this comes to. Essentially, it all boils down to it is not a earth-shattering development, but the story did progress yesterday, and Pat Forty just filled that in. Feel any way you want about Pat Forty. I'm just telling you from a journalistic perspective, yesterday was about as vanilla as it gets.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.